Hello students, welcome back. Let us continue with Science 1, Chapter 3, Chemical Reaction and Equation, Part 3. Today we will be doing the last part of the topic and then we shall be finishing our Chapter 3. Okay, so let's start with the chapter, the last part. Before we start, there is a small can you tell activity mentioned in your textbook, page number 39. We shall go through this activity. There are 6 questions which are there. We will discuss it, find the solution, and then which will lead us to the new topic. Classify them into groups and give titles to the group. So there are some act processes mentioned here. We have to classify them into 2 groups and give them titles. Let's see the first reaction now. Cooking gas starts burning on ignition. Yes, the moment I switch on the gas and I add a lighter, I plug the lighter or my matchbox to it or a matchstick, there is a blue flame or a cooking gas starts. That means if I have to compare it as fast or slow process, I can say that cooking gas starts burning on ignition is a fast process. The next one reaction now. Iron article undergoes rusting. Everybody knows what is a rusting. When iron article is kept out for few years or something, many days outside, a brownish layer is developed on that iron article. That brownish layer is nothing but your rust on the iron article. So iron article undergoes rusting is a very slow process. The third one, erosion of rock takes place to form soil. I don't know whether if you all have studied in geography, the formation of soil is a very slow process. If not in geography, in science also, we have studied somewhere deep. I don't know which standard, but the formation of soil is a very slow process. It takes many years for the rocks to erode and form into soil. So, form erosion of rock takes place from soil is a slow process. Let's move to the next question now. Question 4. Alcohol is formed on mixing yeast in glucose solution under proper condition. Here the process is slow because there is a fermentation process involved, and fermentation is an organic process and it takes a very slow time. It will take on its own time and the alcohol formation takes place. So alcohol is forming on mixing yeast in glucose solution under proper condition is a slow process. The chemical reaction is taking place and it is at a very slow rate. The fifth question. Effervescence is formed on adding baking soda into a test tube containing dilute acid. This is a practical one. If you would have done it in practical, I would have shown you all. You would have get a clear idea. But if not using a baking soda or dilute HCl, if you all have used a Eno packet in a normal water, there also you can see the effervescence coming out. So these are nothing but when you add water and if you take Eno packet and you add water to it, you will see bubbles coming out. These bubbles are nothing but effervescence. So if I have to categorize this reaction or this reaction into slow or fast process, what will you say? Is it a fast process or a slow process? Definitely it is a fast process because effervescence come as soon as the baking soda and dilute acid are in contact with each other. So effervescence is formed on adding baking soda into a test tube containing dilute acid is a fast process. Now we'll move to the last question. A white precipitation is formed on adding dilute sulfuric acid to barium chloride solution. Here again it is a fast process. Students, whenever any chemical reaction has an acid to it, the reaction is always fast. It may be a very slow, it may take some time, but the reaction takes place at a very fast rate because acids react faster. And that is why a white precipitate is formed on adding dilute sulfuric acid to barium chloride solution is a fast reaction. So if you have observed the 6 reactions which we did, we categorize them into 2 groups as fast process or fast reaction taking place, slow process or slow reaction taking place. Let's quickly have a glimpse of what the 2 types of reactions are. Under fast process, you will have cooking gas starts burning on ignition, then effervescence are formed on baking soda in a test tube containing dilute acid, and a white precipitate is formed on adding dilute sulfuric acid to barium chloride solution. So we have 3 reactions considered as the fast reaction. On the other side, the second group which we labeled is a slow reaction. In those we have iron particles undergo rusting, erosion of rock takes place to form soil, and alcohol is formed on mixing yeast in glucose under proper condition. So now, as the reactions are classified as fast reaction and slow reaction, we will be moving with today's topic as called as the rate of chemical reaction. Okay, students, now let's move to the new topic of this part is nothing but rate of chemical reaction. As we saw in the previous activity, few reactions take place at a faster rate or they occur at a short time. When they are occurring at a short time, we can say that the reaction is occurring rapidly or faster, and the reactions which take a longer time to complete, we can say that they are occurring slowly. The example to give you from the previous case, short time effervescence, formation of effervescence on adding dilute acid to baking soda is happening in a very small time or a short time. That means the reaction is taking faster. Long time rusting of iron takes long duration to complete and therefore it is occurring slowly. So the rate of reaction is different for different reaction. So we have studied about the various chemical reaction. The rate of reaction for each those reaction will be different. Same reaction will occur at a different rate on changing the condition. So if I take the same reaction, in summer it may take place faster as well as in winter it will take place slower. At the same way, in winter it may take place faster and in summer it will take a longer time. One example I have given you is the formation of curd. If you see the formation of curd in winter, it takes a longer time for the curd to form. Whereas in summer, it is an easy process. It takes a quick time. A short time, and it is a quick process. So in summer, the formation of curd is very quick, as well as in winter, the formation of curd is a very slow process. So students, the next topic is factors affecting the rate of chemical reaction. There are few factors which are affecting. We will list it down and then each one I will be explaining in the further part of the PPT. So the first one is the nature of reactant. Second one, size of the particle of reactant, concentration of the reactant, temperature of the reaction, and the last one is catalyst. We have studied something about this in the previous when we were doing the reactions, but now we will study the exactly how is it affecting the chemical reaction. Is it speeding up or it is decreasing the rate of chemical reaction? Now the first one is nature of reactant. Let's see a small video related to it first.
What happens when metals react with acids? We have taken samples of magnesium, aluminium, zinc and copper. Add the samples into the beaker containing dilute hydrochloric acid and observe the formation of bubbles. We can see that the rate of formation of bubbles is the fastest in the case of magnesium. The reaction is the most exothermic in this case. The reactivity decreases in the order magnesium, aluminium and zinc. Metals react with acids to give us salt and
So the first property, nature of the reactant. Now we'll see what are the points here. The reaction of aluminium and zinc with dilute HCl acid will give you hydrogen gases liberated and water soluble salts of these metals are formed. So when you take a metal and you react with dilute HCl, you get the formation of hydrogen gas and a water soluble salt is formed. If you see the video which I showed you just now, we had done 4 metals here: magnesium, aluminium, zinc and copper. Magnesium was reacting very fast, the bubble formation was very fast, that means hydrogen gas was liberated quick and the temperature was raised up to 60 degree Celsius. Then came aluminium. Aluminium also, there was a fast evolution of bubbles taking place, that is hydrogen gas was liberated and the temperature reached up to 80 degree Celsius. Then when the zinc metal was added, you see the bubble formation was very slow as compared to magnesium and aluminium, and the temperature was only up to 34 degrees Celsius. And copper, it was least reactive. So if you see the metal reactions of the metals, it was highest in case of magnesium, then aluminium, then zinc and copper. So when I take different metals, the nature of them is different and that is why they react differently. So this is the nature of metal. Aluminium is more reactive than zinc because just as we saw in the video, aluminium had fast evolution of hydrogen gas as compared to the zinc metal. Nature of the reactivity of the reactant influences the rate of chemical reaction. So if you see, when I take a metal and dilute HCl, when I add aluminium metal, the reaction takes place faster. But when I add zinc metal to it, the reaction is taking place slower. So the nature of reactivity is directly related to my nature of reactivity is directly related to the rate of reaction. the next property or the next factor affecting the rate of chemical reaction is size of the particles of reactant. Just as you saw in the video just now, I showed you two petri dish were taken and calcium carbonate was added. In one petri dish they added powdered calcium carbonate, and the other one a lump was added. So you might have seen the reaction took place faster in the one where there was a powdered calcium carbonate which was there. Rate of the reaction depends upon the size of the particle of the reactant taking part in the reaction. So the larger particles will take more time, smaller particles will quickly react. Smaller the size of the reactant particle, higher is the rate of reaction. So the third one is concentration of the reactant. As you saw in the video, two test tubes were taken, test tube A and test tube B. Test tube A dilute HCl was there, and in test tube B concentrated HCl was there. In both the test tube a magnesium ribbon was added. If you have observed, both the test tubes started the reaction, hydrogen gas was evolved, but the reaction in dilute HCl was very slow as compared to the concentrated HCl. In concentrated HCl, the magnesium ribbon reacted faster and H2 gas was evolved at a greater rate. Concentrated acids react faster than the dilute acids. So concentration of the reactant property will tell you that all the concentrated acids or solutions will react faster as compared to the dilute ones. So the rate of reaction is proportional to the concentration of the reactant. If the concentration of the reactant is high or solution is high, then the rate of reaction is high. If the concentration of the reactant or solution is less, then the rate of reaction will also be less. So they are directly proportional to each other.
Effect of temperature on rate of reaction. Let us study the reaction of oxalic acid with potassium permanganate in the presence of sulfuric acid. Let us study the reaction of oxalic acid with potassium permanganate in the presence of sulfuric acid. Take 0.5 gram of oxalic acid in a beaker and dissolve it in 20 milliliters of water. Now to this oxalic acid solution, add 5 milliliters of dilute sulfuric acid. To this mixture, add a few drops of potassium permanganate solution. Observe that the solution turns pink. Now stir the solution with a glass rod for a while. Observe the color of the solution. The solution remains pink. Then, in another beaker, prepare oxalic acid solution in the same way as prepared earlier. Add the same amount of dilute sulfuric acid to it. Now heat the solution to about 60 to 80 degrees Celsius and then add a few drops of potassium permanganate solution to it. You will observe that on stirring, the pink color of the solution disappears. As the pink color of potassium permanganate does not disappear in the cold oxalic acid, sulfuric acid mixture, but disappears quite fast in the hot solution, it can be said that heating speeds up the reaction between oxalic acid and potassium permanganate. The chemical equation of the reaction is depicted here. Thus, we can conclude that generally the rate of a reaction increases when the temperature increases.
So the next effect is temperature of the reaction. In the video it was shown that oxalic acid was taken and in that a solution of oxalic acid with water was prepared and then 5 ml of dilute HCl was added. When I add a few drops of KMnO4 to this solution, what happens? The solution turns pink in color. On stirring for few minutes, the color does not change. It remains pink only. Then I take the second time, I take the same oxalic acid solution, mix it with water. I heat the solution and then I add KMnO4 to it. The solution turns pink color, but later on it changes to colorless. So what can we conclude from here? That when I heat up, the reaction takes place faster. So heating increases the speed of the chemical reaction. So the rate of reaction increases on increasing the temperature.
Hi guys, welcome back. This is going to be a quick experiment. This one is looking at the effect of a catalyst on reaction rate. Alright, what we're going to use is we're going to use hydrogen peroxide. Okay, 30% hydrogen peroxide, quite strong. Going to see what happens. So what happens with this reaction is it decomposes into water and oxygen. So the idea is when it's decomposing, you can see the bubbles being produced. Okay, so normally that just happens generally, okay? It usually takes a long time, to be honest. When we cause it to react with things, or if we use a catalyst, we might expect it to happen a little bit quicker, all right? We might increase the reaction rate. So what we're going to do is we're going to add 5 mils of hydrogen peroxide to these 2 test tubes. One of them is not going to have catalyst, the other one will have a catalyst. The catalyst will be manganese dioxide, okay? Only going to add a little bit of it using a spatula. Then we're just going to observe and see what happens, see which one reacts faster. Pretty simple. Okay, I've measured out my 5 mils of hydrogen peroxide, so I'll add to test tube 1. This one we won't have a catalyst in, so you can have a look. Is there anything happening? Are there any bubbles being produced? Can't see any, so the reaction is very slow. The reaction rate is low. For the second one, 5 mils again, pour it into my second test tube. This one I'm going to add my manganese dioxide to. All right. Here it is. Manganese dioxide is, you can't really see it there, just a dull, dark grey powder, very powdery. Okay, I've got a little bit on my spoon and I'll add it in. Okay, you can see the reaction is happening quite quickly. Lots of stuff is going on there. Okay, the gas you can see being produced, that's oxygen. Lots and lots of oxygen is produced because the reaction happens super quick. Catalyst has sped it up for us. Okay, super simple experiment. One thing to note is that test tube is now quite hot because the reaction produces heat. It's exothermic. Okay, so that's probably something you need to be careful about. And our original one has still not done anything. That's still hydrogen peroxide. This one is just water with manganese dioxide in it. Easy as. See you guys.
So the last factor affecting the rate of chemical reaction is catalyst. Now, if you see in the video, hydrogen peroxide was taken in 2 test tubes. In one test tube, there was no catalyst added, and in the second test tube, magnesium dioxide was added. On reaction of magnesium dioxide with hydrogen peroxide, you might have seen lot of gases coming out. This gas is nothing but oxygen, and the product left behind was nothing but water. So catalyst increases the rate of reaction, or it speeds up the reaction. So the substances in whose presence the rate of chemical reaction changes without causing any chemical change to it is called a catalyst. So it generally does not affect the chemical reaction, but it increases the rate of reaction. So we have done with the factors affecting the rate of chemical reaction. Let's just recall the factors. First one is nature of reactant. Second one, size of the particles of the reactant. Third one, concentration of the reactants. Fourth one, temperature of the reaction. And the last one is catalyst. Now we move to the next part of the topic, that is the reaction, oxidation and reduction reaction. Now I have placed some reaction on the slide. If you see the reaction, one element is combining with oxygen element and giving you a different compound. In all the reaction, oxygen is combining. Carbon plus oxygen is giving you carbon dioxide. Similarly, aluminium plus oxygen is giving you aluminium oxide. Magnesium plus oxide is giving you magnesium oxide. Copper plus oxygen is giving you copper oxide. So there is an oxygen adding or combining with another element to give you the compound. So oxygen is combining in all the 4 reactions. Now the next set of reactions. Now if you see here, I have highlighted with a red color In the reactant side, it is NH2, but when you move to the product side, it is only nitrogen, that is N is present. Hydrogen is reduced. From the reactant to product side, it is reduced. Similarly, the second reaction, it is H2S in the reactant side, but when you move to the product side, it is only S. Again, H has been reduced, that is hydrogen is reduced or lost. Last one, CH3CH2OH. Again, we have only CH3CHO. Again, that hydrogen, that is H2, is lost. So in this all this reaction, hydrogen is lost. So if you compare the previous reaction and this reaction, in the previous reaction, all the reactions state that oxygen is combining, and in all these three reactions, it shows that hydrogen is lost. This type of reactions are called as oxidation reaction. Now let's see the definition. A chemical reaction in which oxygen combines with element or a compound, or a reaction in which hydrogen is lost from a compound is called as oxidation reaction. So you will either have an oxygen combining or hydrogen reducing. So when any of the two is happening, then we can say that this reaction is nothing but a oxidation reaction which is taking place. Now if you see this reaction, CH3CH2OH is getting converted into CH3COOH. That means there is loss of hydrogen which is taking place. So when there is loss of hydrogen, it is nothing but an oxidation reaction. So if you see oxidation reaction, there is some specific chemical substances are used here. So if you see on the arrow, K2Cr2O7 and H2SO4 is used. So when chemical substances which are used to bring about the oxidation reaction, we call those as oxidants or oxidizing agent. Let's see the definition. Chemical substances which bring about an oxidation reaction by making oxygen available are called as oxidant or oxidizing agent. So here K2Cr2O7 and H2SO4 are nothing but your oxidant or oxidizing agent. Now if you see here, hydrogen is getting combined in all the three reactions. Cl2 plus H2 is giving you 2HCl. C plus 2H2 is giving you CH4, and H2S plus Cl2 is giving you 2HCl because H2 is combining with Cl2. So your displacement reaction is taking place, but it is combining, that is 2HCl. So in this all these three reactions, hydrogen is combining. Now if you see the next set of reaction, the first one Fe2O3 on the reactant side, but when you move to the product side, it is reduced to Fe, that means oxygen is reduced. Similarly, CuO, that is copper oxide on my reactant side, but when I move to the product side, it is only copper. Again, oxygen is reduced or lost. Zinc oxide ZNO on my reactant side, and when I move to the product side, it is only zinc. Again, oxygen is lost or reduced. So in all the three reaction, oxygen is lost or reduced. Now if you see now I will again compare it with my previous reaction. In the previous reaction, oxygen is combining and hydrogen is lost. That is my oxidation reaction. But here hydrogen is combining and oxygen is lost. This type of reaction is called as your reduction reaction. So a chemical reaction in which hydrogen combines with an element or a compound, or a reaction in which oxygen is lost from a compound is called as a reduction reaction. So hydrogen is combining and oxygen is lost in reduction reaction. Like in oxidation, we had oxidants or oxidizing agent. Same way for reduction also we have reductant or reducing agent. Let's see the definition now. The substances that bring about reduction is called as reductant or a reducing agent. The same way like oxidation, how it brings about oxidation process, same way this reaction or this substances will bring about reduction process. So they are called as reductant or reducing agent. Now, if you observe this reaction here, KMnO4 is the one who is bringing an oxidation reaction for FeSO4. So, from FeSO4, it has been increased to Fe2SO4 thrice. Now, let's see how it is. FeSO4 is converted to Fe2SO4 thrice. So, to balance, it will become 2 FeSO4 giving you Fe2SO4 thrice. So the ionic reaction, if I split up FeSO4, it will become Fe2 plus SO4 2 minus. That is a net charge on those two ions. Will give you 2 Fe3 plus 3SO4 2 minus. So if you observe the ionic reaction here, the ionic charge has increased from F2 plus, it has increased to F3 plus. So F2 plus was ferrous and F3 plus is ferric. So it has changed from ferrous to ferric, and this is brought about by the chemical oxidation of KMnO4, that is potassium permanganate. When hydrogen gas is passed over a black copper oxide, a reddish colored layer of copper is formed. Now that is the reaction here. CuO plus H2 is giving you copper plus water. Let's see this reaction in detail now. CuO plus hydrogen is giving you copper plus water molecule. If I observe only CuO and Cu, what is happening here? Oxygen is lost. So when there is a loss of oxygen, it is nothing but reduction reaction. Now I'll see the next one, hydrogen and H2O. What happened? There is a gain of oxygen, which is nothing but oxidation reaction. So in one reaction, there is a loss of oxygen also taking place and there is gain of oxygen also taking place. So both the reactions are taking place simultaneously. So O2 atom, that is oxygen atom, goes away from copper oxide, which means there is a reduction of copper oxide taking place, like I just explained in the previous slide. And hydrogen molecule is taken up by the oxygen atom and the water molecule is formed, meaning that the oxidation of hydrogen is taking place. So oxidation and reduction reaction occur simultaneously. The reductant is oxidized by the oxidant and the oxidant is reduced by the reductant. Such type of reactions are called as redox reaction. So redox reaction is nothing but reduction plus oxidation.
Oxidation and reduction. Redox reaction. Aim. Formation of copper oxide from copper. Requirement. China dish, copper powder, burner, tripod stand, and wire gauze. Activity. Heat a china dish containing some amount of copper powder and observe what will happen. We can observe the surface of copper powder becoming coated with black copper oxide. Because oxygen is added from air to copper and copper oxide is formed, 2Cu plus O2 gives rise to 2CuO. If hydrogen gas is passed over this heated material, copper oxide, CuO, the black coating on the surface turns brown due to reverse reaction and copper is obtained. CuO plus H2 gives rise to Cu plus H2O. If substance gains oxygen during a reaction, is called oxidized. If substance loses oxygen during a reaction, is called reduced. In this reaction, copper 2 oxide is losing oxygen and is being reduced. The hydrogen is gaining oxygen and is being oxidized. One reactant gets oxidized while the other gets reduced during reaction is called redox reaction.
When the positive charge on an atom or an ion increases or the negative charge on them decreases, it is called as the oxidation reaction. Like if you see here, copper in the solid state is 0 charge, but when I move to the reactant side, it is CuNO3 twice. The charge on copper is +2. So from 0 it has increased to +2, and that is why it is an oxidation reaction which is happening here. So when there is a increase in the positive charge or a decrease in the negative charge, then it is called as the oxidation reaction. The decrease in the negative charge is not shown in this one reaction, but increase in the positive charge is shown. So this is copper to CuNO3 twice is nothing but an oxidation reaction, since the oxidation state or the positive charge on copper is increasing. When the positive charge decreases or the negative charge increases, it is called as reduction reaction. Now see here the reaction over here. If you see OCl minus, it is +1. The charge is +1. But after reaction, it is shown Cl minus with a negative charge, that is -1. So from positive charge, it has decreased to negative charge, that is -1. And that is why it is a reduction reaction which is taking place. So when there is a decrease in the positive charge but increase in the negative charge, then it is called as a reduction reaction. Yes, you all might have already known about this topic. This is nothing but the images of iron particles or copper particles we see generally when they are exposed to air or moisture, and this is nothing but corrosion which takes place. Now let's see a small video of corrosion and then we shall move with the further part of the corrosion topic.
Corrosion. Have you ever wondered why the colors of some metals like iron, silver, and copper gradually change with time? This is caused due to corrosion. When these metals are exposed to air and moisture, they get corroded. In this video, we'll learn more about corrosion. When silver objects are exposed to air, they slowly turn black. Silver reacts with the sulfur in the air to form a coating of silver sulfide. The reaction of copper with moist carbon dioxide in the presence of air gives copper carbonate, which is a green coat formed on the copper substance when it loses its shiny brown surface. Rusting of iron occurs when iron is exposed to moist air for a long time, forming a brown, flaky substance. Now, let's perform an activity to check the conditions in which the rusting of iron takes place. Place clean iron nails in 3 test tubes that are labeled as A, B, and C. Some water should be poured into test tube A, and a cork should be placed on it. Boiled distilled water and about 1 millimeter of oil should be added to test tube B and covered with a cork. The air is prevented from dissolving in water due to the oil, which floats on the water. A small amount of anhydrous chloride should be added to test tube C, and it should be corked. The moisture which will be present in this test tube will be absorbed by the anhydrous chloride. The test tube should be left undisturbed for a few days and then observed. Note that the nails in test tube A are exposed to both air and water, the nails in test tube B are exposed only to water, and the nails in test tube C are exposed to dry air. So it's clear from this experiment that both air and water are needed for the rusting of iron. By keeping iron substances away from both air and water, we can prevent them from rusting.
Okay students, so as you saw in the video in the previous slide, there were 3 beakers which were taken. In the first beaker only water was added and the nail was put in it. In the second one, distilled water and oil was added so that the atmospheric air does not enter the water, and in the last one calcium anhydrous calcium chloride was added, and these 3 test tubes were kept away for 3 days without any change. After 3 days, what did you observe? That the rusting took place only in case of A, but in case of B and C it did not take place, because in A it was exposed to both air and water. In case of B it was exposed to water, but because of that oily surface it was not exposed to air. And in C, anhydrous calcium chloride, the moisture was being taken by the anhydrous one, and that is why in C also rusting did not take place. Therefore, water and air are necessary for rusting. The rusting process takes place rapidly in the presence of salt. So if there is any salt present, then the rapid rusting will take place faster. The new vehicles look shiny. On the contrary, the old vehicle looks very dull. So when we bring a new vehicle, initially few months or something, it will look very shiny, but as and when the time period increases it will start looking dull. Why? Because the metallic surface is getting exposed to air as well as water, and that is why there is a corrosion which is taking place, or rusting which is taking place. And therefore the definition of rusting, we can write it as a certain type of reddish colored solid layer which is collected on the metallic surface. This layer is called as rust. So when any reddish color solid layer is developed or obtained on a metallic surface, then that is called as a rust. So in the previous slide, we studied about what is corrosion and what do you mean by rust. The chemical formula of rust is nothing but Fe2O3 and water. The rust of an iron does not form by simple reaction of oxygen with iron surface, but it is nothing but an electrochemical reaction. Different regions of the surface of iron become anode and cathode. So same surface or same metal is taken, different surface will become anode and cathode, and then the reaction takes place. Now let's see the reactions. Now the first one, Fe is oxidized to Fe2 plus in the anode region. That means when I take one piece of the metal as the anode region, then it is Fe is oxidizing to Fe2 plus because the charge is increasing from 0 to plus 2, and that is why it is an oxidation reaction. O2 is reduced to form water in the cathode region. So one part is anode region and the other part is cathode region. So what happens in the cathode region? Oxygen plus 4 hydrogen molecules with 4 electrons will give you 2H2O. Your hydrogen and oxygen are combining, and that is why it is a reduction reaction taking place. So H2O. So 4H, that is 2H2O is formed. And we take the whole reaction again. 2Fe3 plus, that is in the plus 3 state, plus 4 water molecule, which is a liquid state. When I react, I get Fe2O3H2O, which is my rust, and 6 hydrogen in the aqueous state, which is formed. So the slow process or decay or destruction of the metal due to the effect of air, moisture and acids on it is known as the corrosion which takes place. So when there is, due to the atmospheric oxidation which is taking place, the metals are completely damaged because of the corrosion taking on them. Therefore, corrosion is a very serious problem. Now we shall move to the last part of the topic, that is rancidity. Now what is rancidity? When we use old or leftover cooking oil for making foodstuff, it is found to have foul odor called rancidity. So if you keep on using the same oil many times, you will see that some particular smell you will get. That smell is nothing but a foul smell which is due to the rancidity taking place. And then there is a taste change also taking place. You get a particular taste. If this generally the fried food stuff, if you eat it and same oil you will get a smell as well a taste also changes of that product or the food item. When oil, ghee or fried food is left aside for a long time, it undergoes oxidation and it becomes rancid. Okay, so whenever I use oil and ghee, for the first time it is okay, but after 2 or 3 times when I constantly keep on frying my foodstuff or use that food, and then that oil or ghee or the food item fried in that particular oil, keep it aside for a long time, after few days or something, oxidation reaction takes place and it becomes rancid. Rancidity prevented by using antioxidant. So how can we prevent this? By using antioxidant. Similarly, you can store it in a airtight container. So when we use a airtight container or something, then this rancidity can be reduced.
Rancidity. Have you ever tasted or smelt the fat or oil containing food materials which have been left for a long time unused? These fats and oils which have been left for a long time unused get oxidized and become rancid. As a result, their smell and taste also changes. This process is called rancidity. Usually substances which prevent oxidation also called as antioxidants, are added to foods containing fats and oil. Keeping food in airtight containers also helps in slowing down the process of oxidation. Do you know that chips manufacturers usually flush bags of chips with gases such as nitrogen so as to prevent the chips from getting oxidized?
As a part of the homework for the last part, textbook page number 46, question number 6, 7 and 8, I want you all to do it, and when the school reopens, we shall be discussing this. With this, we finish the third chapter, that is chemical reaction and equation of science 1. Thank you.